Our political system is dominated by two big parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil.
Other countries have a clear dividing line between the leading political groups, but in Ireland, we're different.
So what, if anything, does divide the two power centres of Irish politics?
In Ireland, we don't fit the international pattern.
The closeness of the village community fuses family, friendship, commerce, and politics, making each a personal affair.
Usually there's a big bloc on the left, basically people who favour higher taxes to pay for better public services and state involvement in the economy.
And then there's a bloc on the right who back lower taxes and favour market solutions. But in Ireland we've two big parties and they're both, broadly speaking, right-ish.
Down the decades they've moved further right or to the left, but they've generally sat around the centre of the political spectrum.
This is the way of things. In Ireland, it is the politician's role to provide the linkage between countryman and bureaucrat.
So where are they today? At the last general election, RTE carried out an exit poll asking people to place themselves on a left-right scale, so 0 being very left-wing and 10 being very right-wing.
The mean or average voter was at 4.98, pretty much bang in the centre. But supporters of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil were at 5.84 and 5.7 respectively. In other words, both are slightly to the right of the average voter, and the two are almost exactly the same. So in crude terms, they're both targeting the same market.
But there could be differences on other issues, so nationalism, for instance. And that's the issue that divided Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil in the first place. The two stem from the Sinn Féin party, which split in the early 1920s over the Anglo-Irish Treaty.
The local Common, or branch of Fianna Fáil, traces its genealogy directly from the first Sinn Féin Common in the peninsula. Secretary of the Common is John McAteer.
Fianna Fáil descended from followers of Eamon de Valera, who thought the treaty didn't give Ireland enough freedom, while Fine Gael's political ancestors went with Michael Collins, who saw it as the best deal available.
Like Harry Shields, who since the day in 1921 when he raised his hand for the treaty, remained a loyal member of the other party, Fine Gael.
We had a meeting being held up in the old hall in Drum, and the end of the meeting was just kids what they'll call us about a plebiscite or a show of hands anyway, who was for or against the treaty at that time. Well, of course, there's a few of us there, and we all showed our hands in favour of the treaty. That'll be about 30 years. Well, I never changed my hand from that day to this day. I always followed that party.
Nowadays, Fianna Fáil would see itself as sounder on the national question, basically more engaged in the idea of a united Ireland. But while it has taken a hard nationalist line in opposition, it's not always the same in government. And the key example is Charlie Haughey's response to the 1985 Anglo-Irish Agreement, which basically gave the Republic a say in the affairs of Northern Ireland in return for recognition of the border.
Haughey denounced it as a sellout while he was in opposition.
In the light of my political objectives, which are the ultimate reunification of Ireland, in my view, this agreement today does serious damage to that concept and puts it away into the far distant future, if ever.
But once he got back into government, he worked it like it was his idea all along.
In the same way, Fine Gael sees itself as the party of law and order, tough on Republican paramilitaries. But then in the 1950s, a Fine Gael-led government refused to introduce internment to stop the IRA border campaign. And when De Valera got back in, the IRA leaders very quickly found themselves in turn, and then the border campaign just ran out of steam.
If it's not the 6 counties and it's not the left-right thing, the other dividing line in European politics is very often, well, Europe. But both parties are very pro-EU. They're broadly similar when it comes to church-state relations as well. So what is it then?
In 1999, two political scientists, Michael Gallagher and Michael Marsh, decided to ask members of Fine Gael that very question. They discovered, to their surprise, that 39% of Fine Gaelers saw no real policy difference between their party and Fianna Fáil.
As Gallagher and Marsh concluded with considerable understatement, this was a pattern that we would not expect to find in any other European country.
So you could say the persistence of the divide is partly down to tradition, but also habit. So for decades, people tended to vote for the party that their parents voted for. So much so, the party activists, particularly in rural areas, could actually tell which households voted which way.
Mandy, you'd know some of them better than myself, but I think this first house here, what
That's Fianna Fáil.
would be Fianna Fáil, and
Next is Crossings.
would be Fine Gael.
Fine Gael, that's right.
Yes.
And the next is Gallaghers.
Gallaghers. Well, Mr. Gallagher would have been Fianna Fáil, I think, but His wife would have been Fine Gael now, and I don't know what they voted after they got married, but
I think the family is still Fine Gael.
From there, the differences seem to have become differences of perception, how they see themselves and how they see each other. Fine Gael would see itself as the party most loyal to the state, which it always points out was founded by the party's forerunners.
Fianna Fáil members insisted it wasn't a party, but more a national movement representing all classes and sectors of society. And for decades, it claimed to be the real Labour Party, and it consistently won huge working class support, while at the same time winning the support of business people.
It claimed it was just better at politics and better at government than Fine Gael, until the economic crash destroyed its reputation for competence and left it trailing its traditional rival.
Since then, it's been trying to rebuild, but there's an election coming up sooner, if not later. And the Fianna Fáil leader, Micheál Martin, will be looking to get into the Taoiseach's office like every one of the party's leaders before him.
Success matters to both parties. Being in power matters to both parties. Winning or losing matters to both parties. And maybe that's the real difference between them. Fianna Fáil Taoiseach Sean Lemass certainly thought so. Asked back in the 60s to explain the difference between his party and Fine Gael, he had a succinct answer. Simple, he said, we're in and they're out.